Hello and welcome to Sorcerer's Workshop, where we are always cooking up something new for you to use in your next D&D adventure. In this episode, we are continuing with our Beholderkin, making the Beholderkin, whatever you want to call it. We are making this time the Spectator. Here it is just compared to the Beholder we made just previously, so you can see sort of a quick size comparison. But we'll whisk that away because now I'm going to show you how to make it. So we're going to start with a chunk of XPS foam. You could also use a marble. I trialed out with that, but the hot glue didn't stick to it very well, so I instead went with this instead. So basically you're going to get a square, something like this, doesn't have to be square, and then slowly cut all the corners, sides off until you turn it into a circle. In hindsight, once I've made it, add quite a lot to it, I would actually make it quite a bit smaller. Make the circle you make quite a bit smaller because you'll add quite a lot of modifications to it, like the jaw and the I don't know how to call it, the eyebrow, I guess, or the eyebrow bone. But you'll get something like this, which is not too big, but at the same time it is quite big for a Spectator, which is supposed to be only about maybe a fifth the size of a Beholder. Mine's about a fourth, so it's a little bit bigger than your average Spectator. Now we are going to add some of these the details. We are going to make an eye area by sticking this piece just jutting out a little bit from it, and then we're also going to stick a piece underneath which is glued right on top of it and make a sort of indentation like that. That's going to be where the eye's going to go. And now we're going to make where the jaw is. That is going to be the jaw like that. And then, so it's sticking out quite a bit more. And then we're going to cut off quite a large area. So that's sort of where the mouth is. So we can have a mouth and stick the tongue in there later on. Now we're going to do texturing. So texturing, just sort of streaking the hot glue over the place, and also filling in the holes for the brow and the jaw. Just something like this. Very simple. Also going over the cardboard to make it sort of blend in nicely and not have these weird sort of cardboardy things. But what is a Beholder without the stalks? Not Beholder, Spectator without the stalks. But first I thought we would make some sort of horns or spikes or something like that. They're very, very simple, literally cutting them out like this and then just gluing sort of pieces like this to the top of them. Very, very simple. Just add a little bit of detail to it where I just felt there wasn't enough, because there's only 4 stalks on this Spectator, so, you know, needs something else on the top because it doesn't have any stalks. Now we're going to quickly do some teeth. Again, I rolled on the Volo's Guide to Monsters sort of thing for a few. I didn't stick it up this time because it didn't really need it, but this time I got human-like teeth. And at first I had no idea what I was going to do for this. Well, I had an idea obviously, but I was like, I don't know how to approach this. But I ended up going just sort of, I think it was 3 sort of largish teeth at the back on all 4 sides, and then some sort of sharper ones, and then a few smaller ones in the middle. And this actually worked out really nicely. I'll just show you these sort of the back ones at in a second. I'm just sort of showing how I'm making them, but basically like that. And then you get something like this. So you can see it's sort of a bit of a jumbled mess, but it also works like that. And this is like, I was looking at this, I'm like, this looks like a really cool, like almost human head, or like a Cyclops' head. And, you know, I could use this technique later on. But you see there's sort of a gap there where a tongue could go, which is what we're going to be making next. So get a piece of wire, something like this. Doesn't have to be this, but along the lines of something wide enough that can sort of go in this sort of area. So I sort of, yeah, the human teeth worked really well because I could sort of put a tongue without having the mouth too wide, which was really, really nice. And also looked like the tongue, you know, could have some space. So now I've just hot glued it up basically, and we'll paint that a little bit later on. I'm keeping it separate because painting the mouth around the tongue and then the tongue, it will just get too complicated. But just so you know what it will sort of look like, something like that I'm thinking, because as I'll show a picture of them later, but Spectators have extremely long, weird looking tongues. But hey, that's their design detail, so I made sure to include it. But now we're going to make these stalks finally. Here is 1 stalk completed, 2 stalks completed, 3 stalks completed, and finally all 4. Very nice. Now onto painting. That is it. So again, I got a green color for this, which I sort of wanted because it made it easier for me to paint, because that's what the monster manual art is. But so we're going to make a sort of a gradient, starting darker at the bottom again and getting lighter, like we did the beholder. Sorry, not the beholder. But yeah, so starting nice and deep green and then getting to this sort of lighter green at the top. It will look a bit weird when I apply the paint, but make sure to just sort of color blend the two together. Do it while the other green paint is yeah, you can see it's quite a big difference, but do it while the other paint is still wet, so that by the time you've sort of put it all together, it works really nicely and creates sort of a lime-ish sort of color on the back. And then the other colours. While that is drying, because that's going to take a long time. Oh, remember to do the stalks as well. I forgot about those, to tell you those. Yeah, do the stalks. We're going to quickly paint the tongue in this very tonguish, pinkish sort of colour. It's just literally a sort of magenta colour with a whole lot of white. So here we are. We have done the base colour, which is light at the top. So here is the light green again, and I just wanted to get the tops of these sort of horn spikes, whatever you want to call them, just to make them look a bit different from the rest, which is sort of now a little bit lighter. Doesn't do much, but it just adds a little bit more lightness to the top. Now we are going to move on to the eyes, but not the central eye, the eye stalks. And to do that, we are going to use this color. A little bit out of focus. There you go. It is a extremely light green, because the eyes are actually not the eyes are actually not white. They are actually a really light green. So I made sure to do that and just sort of paint over the front of it on all 4 eyes, which even just doing this really gave it a sort of a beholdery sort of I keep saying beholderkin spectator sort of look. Now using our special black pen, which I use, we're going to draw very thin lines on these to show the sort of the slits that the eyes here. It's really hard to see because the light is sort of bouncing off it, but there are lines on there. Trust me, there are lines on there. But at the end they'll make a bit more sense. So now that we got all the lines on there, we are going to go on to the central eye, which is actually black. I did not expect this. I was thinking draw like either use the light color again, but it is actually black, which is really strange. I didn't know that. Also, while you're doing that, make sure to color in the mouth black as well, that deep empty abyss of a hole. Alright, so now we are going to go back to the sort of the light green sort of color and add a sort of an iris. I still don't know my eye things, but once that's dried, get your black pen again and make a sort of slit. So really the eye is just black, light green, and then black again. It gives it a really sort of crazed look, which spectators are actually described as crazed. So that really works, and the eye just looks a bit different from the rest of the beholders. Now give it some pearly whites, and we are about done. All we have to do is attach the tongue, and then we are done. So I thank you very much for watching, but other than that, I shall see you in the next episode. Thank you and goodbye.